Hello and welcome to Bleav in Celtics. I'm your host, Zach LeBlanc, Celtics insider for Bleav and longtime Boston Celtics fan, here to bring you everything you need to know about the team. On today's show, the Celtics hold off the late Warriors run to pick up a 121 to 110 win. On top of that, Celtics making some roster moves, of course, navigating that luxury tax, and taking a look at Boston's matchup against the Lakers on Sunday night. I'm Zach LeBlanc, Celtics insider for Bleav. This is Bleav in Celtics. So initially, just kicking things off here, the Celtics Warriors, you could tell both these teams were rusty coming out of the All-Star break. Turnovers, guys were on the floor, missed threes to begin. I took down every just bad miss in this game. Airball by Draymond. Pods had a pull up or a step back mid range that hit off the side of the backboard. Baylor Shireman tried a no dip three that hit off the side of the backboard. Moses Moody with an air ball three. And that's just the first quarter. Second quarter, D'Anthony Mellon off the backboard three from a corner. Moody air ball on the wing three in the third quarter. Hauser had air ball in a mid range, and then Baylor Shireman had a three that didn't hit the rim, the right side of the backboard on the top of the arc. So these two teams, as per usual, guys are rusty coming out of the All-Star break, but it was definitely evident in this one. But guys eventually settled in, and the Celtics in this one were up big at a point. They built the early lead playing by moving the basketball, offensive rebounding as well, playing with pace, and they capitalized off the Warriors starting five. They had Draymond at the five. Basically, outside of that, just a lot of guard play. Moses Moody, D'Anthony Mellon, who actually really kept the Warriors in this one. He was the leading scorer for them, 18 points. But the Celtics capitalizing off that. The ball was moving early, and I talked about a little bit of that offensive rebounding. They capitalized well with having Draymond at the five. It was an opportunity for the Celtics really to get out in this game, because I don't think that the Golden, especially with Steph Curry out, who didn't play in this one, Porzingis, and we'll touch on him, who was on that minutes restriction, only played in about 4-minute spurts. There was really no size for the Warriors to combat with the Celtics, who already aren't the biggest team, but when you're playing with four guards and Draymond at the five, there's opportunities to be had. So the Celtics really took advantage of that. Jaylen Brown as well. He had some early playmaking that I loved in this game, and he's had a great balance of being both aggressive but also setting up teammates. He had some early drives to the basket, which I think put some pressure on the Warriors. And then from there, it really opened up the game for him. He had a nice driving kick to Ron Harper, who knocked down a corner three. He found Derek White on a cut early in the game. Jordan Walsh on another driving kick to the corner. So Jaylen Brown, we'll talk about him because he had a triple-double in this one. 23 points, 15 rebounds, 13 assists for Jaylen Brown. Just an all-around effort for him. First Celtic to notch those numbers since Rondo in 2014. So terrific all-around night for Jaylen Brown. Really set the tone for them, getting everyone involved, and then eventually sort of cleaning things up for himself. In this one, the Celtics strategy, I think, was pretty evident offensively. Was the Warriors with so many inefficient shooters. The Celtics said we'll live with them shooting, and initially that plan kind of worked for Golden State in their favor. Starting the game 8 for 17 in the first quarter. Will Richard off the bench had 3 threes, which really kept the Warriors in that game to end the first quarter. But the Warriors in general finishing the game 20 for 55 from three. That's not going to get it done. Draymond 0 for 5 from three. Al Horford just 1 for 6. And Horford on that late comeback run that the Warriors had, he had so many good open looks, just couldn't knock them down. And the Celtics said, we're going to live with that. You have no really premier shooters outside of maybe a guy like Moses Moody, who's a pretty good shooter, but everyone else is kind of questionable. So Celtics said, we'll live with that. We'll take away everything in the paint. And ultimately, the Warriors kind of shot themselves out of this game. 20 for 55 isn't horrible, but the volume there was so much, and it just led to so many defensive stops for the Celtics. I talked about Will Richard a little bit, and his spark in that first quarter is kind of what kept the Warriors alive in that one. It was a quick game between these two teams early, both teams flying up the court. It was 15 to 15 at a point, and after that, the Celtics sort of took away the game a little bit, but Will Richard brought them back in. He had a step back three and also had a buzzer beater to end the first quarter, keep the Warriors within 5. Now, moving on to that second quarter, what I talked about last episode was big thing, how I'm looking at Nikola Vucevic and his continued integration into the team. And I used the word seamless, and I got to say, again, he was simply seamless in this one. He was so versatile in this game. I talked a lot about his passing ability. One of the first plays of the game he made, which unfortunately didn't convert, but caught the ball at the free throw line. His head is always up on these passes, especially. He gets the ball and his head's up ready to make the next play, whether it's put the ball on the floor, take a couple dribbles, or look for the guy that's open, and he found an open guy, Jordan Walsh, wide open underneath the basket. Just couldn't complete the pass. He had another driving kick on a swing pass to Sam Hauser. He hit a corner three over Kristaps Porzingis, an offensive rebound for the putback. So doing a little bit of everything. And one of the things that I did love the most about him was that he was really running the floor for the Celtics off these defensive stops. I thought how the Warriors were playing kind of small because even Al Horford, when he's at center, he's only 6'9". So Porzingis really was their only height in this game. Nikola Vucevic, I thought, took advantage of a lot of that, running the entire floor. Pritchard had a steal at one point in the first half, and Vuce, coming from the opposite baseline, runs down the floor to finish at the rim for two, using a lot of those sort of loop-in passes. Hauser found him as well. Him just running down the floor, but no one on the Warriors had the size to sort of stop him. So just simply getting him the ball was enough. Vuce plus 26 on the court in just the first half, -6 went off. So making an impact, a guy that is doing everything for this team. And he's been passable on defense at times. He had a couple blocks actually in this one. Still, I think integrating himself into that system, but they don't need him to be perfect on defense because the Celtics already have so many guys that can defend the perimeter that if Vooch can just sort of be a little bit of help on that backline defense, provide a block here and there, that's all they're going to need out of him. I talk about that second quarter, 17-2 run to start the quarter for the Celtics. Just great basketball. I talked a little bit about that pace, their ball movement, driving and kicking. Hugo Gonzalez, I think, had a great play in that second quarter, really embodying what I said, that sort of drive and kick, Derek White driving, and then Hugo cutting in from the corner to hit him for a reverse layup. Celtics eventually open up the game in the second quarter, up 55-36. But the Warriors would make a little bit of a run here because I thought the Celtics got ISO heavy. They cut the lead down to 15. And then after that, I think the Celtics realized that moving the ball is what they did best at this game. They got back to moving the ball. Pritchard starts pulling up from 27 feet. Hauser with the two as well. 12 threes in the first half. The Celtics, in those last 2 minutes of the half, started moving the ball around again, and the offense was scoring at will. Tremendous. I think the first 3 quarters of this game were 3 of the best quarters that the Celtics have played all season. And we'll talk about why that fourth quarter wasn't so perfect. So the Celtics in the third quarter now, 11-0 run to start. No presence defending the rim for the Warriors with that small ball lineup. And that run ultimately gave the Celtics enough cushion for the win. And the reason why I use the word cushion is because Golden State would not go down in this one. They made a run to start the fourth. Scrappy plays, Steve Kerr and those Warriors upping the pressure. I thought Gary Payton, the mitten, was a big part in that little spark at the end for the Warriors. Out of this world athletic reverse layup. He had KP with an extremely deep three to cut the lead to 20, and then you start to feel a little bit of that pressure from the Celtics. The Warriors really ticking it up a notch. The pressure was forcing problems. The Celtics cannot handle that ball pressure by Gary Payton, DeAnthony Melton. And all of a sudden, the Warriors force it to a 15-point game. They started the fourth quarter 7 for 7 on a 15-0 run. It wasn't until Baylor Shireman made a nice little drive and bank shot to really stop that run. But the Warriors' pressure was causing problems for the Celtics. And I think it's because they took their foot off the gas. You know, there isn't too much that you can take away from that fourth quarter and say, oh, you know, the Celtics, they're gonna blow leads. They took their foot off the gas. Jaylen Brown, even, you know, he had to check back in this one, game where I don't think that he thought he was gonna have to check back in after the Celtics had a 34-point lead. But like I said, the pressure caused a lot of problems for the Celtics. Turnovers, travels. They really just let the Warriors dictate their play in the fourth quarter, ultimately cutting that lead from 34-11. And so the Celtics, they needed an answer. Who was going to show up now? Who was going to take over this game? Really put the Warriors away. And it was Peyton Pritchard hit answer from deep off a Jaylen Brown assist, per usual in this one. It was like 30 feet. Just a tremendous shot. And the next possession up, Celtics get a stop. Pritchard running the floor on the right side wing. Jaylen Brown finds him again for a pull-up three, just giving the Celtics enough separation to win this game. They had enough of a cushion that they were going to win, but it did feel like, you know, if there was another 5 minutes in this one, how was Golden State, you know, gonna come back in that one? Because they put, like I said, they put the pressure on the Celtics. So credit to the Warriors, credit to Steve Kerr, credit to Gary Payton. Guys that really came in, sort of almost changed the tide in the fourth quarter, but it was more just a math game at that point. The Warriors did not have enough time to come back into this one. Celtics taking these games personal against the Warriors. I think beat them by 52 in March of 24, 40 last year, January 25th, and then last night we're up 34. Obviously, the final score did not dictate how dominant performance that was in the first three quarters. But the Celtics, I think, ever since that finals loss, had these games circled a little bit. A lot of guys on the roster still there from that loss. So it means a little bit extra when you play these guys, especially considering how good these matchups have been between these teams, and definitely difficult from a fan perspective to not see Steph in this one. But the Celtics capitalized off of that, picked up a win. Celtics 2, Jaylen Brown, I said that triple-double for him, 23, 15, and 13. First Celtic to notch those numbers since Rondo. And the third game of the year that the Celtics have 35 assists or more. The Warriors really trying to take away a lot of the paint for the Celtics, and that led to Jaylen Brown. I spoke in that aggressiveness for him to really drive and kick in this one. A lot of his assists were just built simply on him putting pressure on the paint. He had a great assist in the fourth quarter where he's coming from the left side wing, dribbles, pretty much gets to the free throw line, and then hooks a pass over his head back out to Peyton Pritchard for three. Him and Pritchard had a great connection in this one. Lots of threes. Pritchard off the bench. He even talked about it. 26 points off the bench for Pritchard in this one. And his stats as a starter this season, 17 points per game, shooting 46% from the field, 35% from three. Pritchard as a six-man this year, 22.5 points per game, 52% from the field, 43% from three, which they asked Pritchard after the game, that difference between starting and coming off the bench. And he said it's honestly kind of funny because the thing with starting is that he feels like he plays more minutes even when he comes off the bench. The only difference is he's not playing the first 5 minutes of the game. So I think Peyton Pritchard, credit to him for being so selfless. Coming into the year as a starter, Celtics make a couple moves. They needed a guy to come off the bench and be that spark. And of course, I think that's just the perfect role for him. So good to see him, of course, always thrive in that role. And was a big integral piece in this one, whether it was knocking down the threes. I thought, too, he was a big part of driving and kicking in this one. He was working on Porzingis a little bit, which we'll talk about his night. I thought he was solid in this one for the Warriors. Obviously, like I said, playing some of those 4-minute stints, so kind of hard to get a rhythm. And he even said that, he might force up some shots here just to try and really get himself into that offense. But he had a dunk for his first points of the game, and then that super deep three I mentioned earlier. A couple of those post-up opportunities that I mentioned on the last episode, talking about posting up shorter guys. The Celtics necessarily didn't have an answer for that because of how short they are. So posting up Baylor Shireman, kind of just shooting over him. He had another one on Pritchard where he shot over him. So it's a good pickup for the Warriors. We'll have to see, what they do with Jimmy Butler, whether they keep him next year. Are they going to move him for someone? Because like I said, I think Porzingis is the perfect third piece to a team like that, but they need to get a second guy for Steph if they really want to compete because of how much questions there are about Porzingis' ability. But in the end, of course, Celtics hold off to the Warriors, win 121-110, coming out of the All-Star break with a win. And I said this would be big for them considering that the schedule that they have coming up, the Lakers on Sunday, they then play the Suns, then the Nuggets. So good to get a win, get one up on this tough road schedule here for the Celtics. Now, in other words, Celtics making some roster moves. Of course, we talked about it last time, trying to stay under that luxury tax. And they've made a couple moves, Brad Stevens, to really work around the money here. Picking up their former guard, Delano Banton, signing him to a 10-day, was in with the Celtics in 2023 to 24, but was traded to the Trailblazers at the deadline to free up a roster spot. And Brad Stevens said the Celtics need to add some ball handling. I think that's the main get here for the Celtics. He comes in with a lot of size, 6'8", 6'11" wingspan. But I think the big thing with Delano Banton has always been his efficiency. A lot of questions about it. Game with Portland, 30 points on 27 shots. So interesting kind of add. But I think when you look at the context of him fitting in here, he's not going to have to take as many. He's never going to take 27 shots, let alone 10 in a game, let alone maybe even 5. What I remember from him here is knocking down the occasional corner three, the length to attack the rim. He's got enough size to finish, and he's a good defender because of that size. Like I said, 6'8", 6'11". So more just a depth piece for the Celtics, some ball handling that they needed off the bench. It's just a 10-day, so we'll have to see what it looks like for him, but always good to see familiar face back in the lineup. The other thing, Celtics elevated John Tonje to a standard contract coming in from the Chris Boucher trade in Utah. 53rd pick in the draft from the Jazz. 2 games played for the Maine Celtics, 25 points. The big thing here, 24 years old in the age, so definitely kind of why he fell so far in the draft. Guys would rather prefer drafting that 19-year-old rather than a 24-year-old with a lot more potential. But he comes in as 6'5", combo guard type of player, really 3-way level threat. And why did Brad Stevens make these moves? Well, of course, managing the cap, trying to stay under that luxury tax. Celtics still have some work to do as it relates to that. Brad Stevens getting the Celtics at $8,603 exactly under the tax. So when the ban 10-day deal expires, they're going to have to fill the roster spot again. So we'll have to see how they sort of navigate it as the season continues. Brad Stevens, I'm sure, based on what we've seen so far, the Celtics have a plan for it. But we'll have to see, of course, trying to avoid that repeater tax and ultimately set themselves up for an opportunity to add some guys in the offseason here. Now, but looking at this Lakers game Sunday, Celtics-Lakers at 6:30 on Sunday. As of right now, clean injury report for the Lakers as they gear up to play the Clippers on Friday. So a chance for both these teams to be fully healthy outside Jason Tatum. What I'm looking for in this matchup, of course, is the Brown-Doncic matchup. That was one that really Jaylen Brown kind of dominated in that NBA Finals series a few years ago. And then going back to the game last March, Brown really just taking on that matchup every single time they play, and it's been the focal points. What's won these games for the Celtics a lot has been Brown's play against Doncic in any of these matchups. So the other thing is too that I'm looking at Austin Reeves and Derek White, that matchup. Who, as the second really scorer in these opportunities, can come up big. I think that's the big thing to look for. These are 2 good offenses, but you need a second guy really to step up. Derek White, not too much in this Warriors game for him, more just controlling the pace, where Pritchard sort of took over from the scoring aspect as that secondary scorer. But I think there's an opportunity for Derek White to make a big impact 2 ways in this one, and this will go, like I said, with that Warriors game a long way, especially coming in against a healthy Lakers team. It'd be a good win for the Celtics, trying to build up some of that momentum and an opportunity to get win number 37 here. Steve Kerr even said it himself that the Celtics is impressive what they've done. They're legit so far. No matter whether Tatum comes back or not, this has been such a tremendous season for the Celtics. And, like I said, the first 3 quarters of that Warriors game, I think was some of the best basketball they've played all season. So hopefully we can get some of that for the Lakers game on Sunday. I'm Zach LeBlanc. I'll be back here to talk about that Lakers game on Tuesday, preview everything else that we have going on with the Celtics in that week. Once again, I'm Zach LeBlanc, the host of Bleav in Celtics, here to talk to you about everything Celtics related. I'll be back Tuesday. Thank you.